Okay, it is 2 o'clock, so I'm going to get started. I value your time. Thank you everyone for coming. We are here to talk about Title IV, Part A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grants. You'll see that there's a lot that this grant can do to support students in your LEAs. A couple housekeeping things super quick. Make sure your mics are muted if you're not speaking. When you do speak, if you want to turn off your camera, it can make it a little more personal. And also, if you would add which LEA charter or district you are representing by going down to participants down on the bottom of your Zoom screen, clicking participant name, and then adding parentheses, bar, or a dash, a colon. I don't care how you do it, but just you can edit. You can actually edit your name. And somebody has
houses are building across the street.
Ooh, I think I can mute you. Haha. There we go. And I can't. Sorry, I was multitasking there, muting people. Yeah, if you'll add your LEA name to the side, it's just really helpful when you are talking that other people kind of know where you're from as well, and that is helpful. I do have the chat open. I may not always catch everything, so feel free to turn your mic on and interrupt me if I don't catch it. Crystal Carfaro is also here. She is our support staff at the Utah State Board of Education for this grant, and she is amazing. Anything to do with the funding side of it, Crystal is the expert for sure. She has helped every step of the way as with me coming on and being over this grant since May. I picked this up in May and then I went on maternity leave for 13 weeks. So that was great timing, right? But she is excellent, and she was support for Jolie Honey as well. So Crystal is here, and if she may interrupt me if she notices that I'm ignoring any chats. So with that, let's see, sometimes there's this crazy pause. There is one. Oh, someone is not muted. I'm muting you. Okay. I heard myself twice, and that's kind of freaky. Okay. So the purpose of Title IV Part A is to increase educational equity and opportunities for all students. So it's providing students with well-rounded education, improving the conditions so that safe and healthy students, improving the use of technology in order to support academic achievement and digital literacy. So the effective use of technology one, this third one, is is a little bit weird in Utah because we have the digital teaching and learning funds already that we really encourage you to use. However, we need to find ways that you can still use this money, because you do have to, anyone receiving funds over $30,000, which is almost every district and quite a few of our charters, you have to have at least 1% of your funds in this last pot of money. And I know that in the past we weren't really vocal about that requirement, but you do need to do that. So if you are receiving a large amount of funding from our digital teaching and learning section, they are coming up with some strategies that can help supplement what you're already doing with them and not supplanting. Okay, and there's the craziest pause when I hit next slide. I'm sorry. Always feel free to type questions in the chat box too. Okay, so here are some of the requirements with Title IV Part A. Identify areas of improvement through a comprehensive needs assessment. Create a plan to address areas of improvement as it aligns with the purposes of Title IV Part A using allowable activities. You will get access to these slides. Sorry, I should have said that right at the beginning, but this link here will take you to the federal statute for the grant. You will need to describe how your funds will be used within the allowable activities, and we'll go over each of those activities in a little more detail. And your use of evidence-based practices in those allowable activities. So saying that you're going to work on reducing the amount of underage drinking and have programs for underage drinking prevention. that's great, but make sure that you're using ones that are evidence-based. And then finally, have a measurable outcome that demonstrates success in the programs and activities that your LEA is choosing. So description, and this is right out of the statute. So I apologize, it's a little boring. Oh, thank you. Crystal put the link to the statute in the chat. Title IV Part A provides opportunity for educational excellence for each Utah student by ensuring equity of educational opportunities and culturally responsive practices to promote each student's academic success and well-being. So I've mentioned equity twice now. If you can see, this is really a vital part of this grant. It is really, truly trying to be equitable with all of our opportunities for students. Any award of $30,000 or more must include each activity. As I said before, well-rounded, safe and healthy students, effective use of technology. Any award under $30,000, which by the way, everyone will get at least $10,000. If you are eligible for this grant, the minimum is $10,000. You have to choose at least one of the activities to focus on. So if you're receiving under $30,000, you don't need to do all three, but you do have to do at least one. You also need to conduct a comprehensive needs assessment, and this is not new. You have to do it every 3 years. What is new though is the way that we are going to have you report the findings of your comprehensive needs assessment. And I'll go over that in a lot more detail because this is new. This is not something that we have been perfectly aligned with statute in the past, and after some more training that Jolie, Honey, and I actually both went to in December, we learned that we needed to adjust some of the ways that we were collecting the information off of your needs assessment. You only need to do the comprehensive needs assessment though if your LEA is receiving more than $30,000, and again, it's only every 3 years. And also, for you over 30,000, you have to have at least 20% in well-rounded and at least 20% in safe and healthy schools. It doesn't say that on the slide, I apologize, but it's both. You need 20% in both of those, and then at least 1% of your funding in effective use of technology. Then there's a special rule that no more than 15% of your funds spent in the area of effective use of technology can be found or can be used for infrastructure. Where do you find the slides? They have not been shared yet. We will make sure we get those out to you. I apologize, we didn't share them ahead of time. I actually made a couple of changes earlier today, and so that is 100% my fault. I apologize, but I'll get them to you. The objectives of this, so when we were talking about equity, we really are focusing, there's a few areas that the grant is focused on at the federal level, and these were the groups that were identified. Female students, minorities, English language learners, children with disabilities, economically disadvantaged students, and students in rural or underserved areas. So that is kind of our targets of when you're thinking about how to increase equity with your student populations. Those are some of the groups that you should try to focus on. And someone else isn't muted. When you are deciding how you're going to use these funds, you do need to have consultation with your stakeholders. Your stakeholders could be any of these groups that are listed here, and there could obviously be other ones as well. Parents is listed first, teachers, principals, other school leaders. Those are probably two very important groups to make sure that you're including when you are filling out that application and deciding on how you're going to use the funds. Okay, before we get to allowable programs, are there any questions yet? I'll pause for just a moment. Okay. Oh, there's one. If we're receiving less than 30,000, what stakeholders need to be involved? So the same your LEA, you do get to choose which stakeholders you involve, and you get to decide even if you're over 30,000, but you do need to involve someone. And whether you have like a community council already that you use for other things, that would work. Really, there's no requirement of how many stakeholder groups you have to have. It's just that you have to have some. And those are the suggested, I can go back to that slide. These are just the suggested, oops, too far. These are just the suggested stakeholder groups that you could involve. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so now here's kind of some of our biggest changes from the 18, 19, and 20 applications that we have put out. And I know that each year the application has changed a little bit. This year I've really tried to simplify it and be very clear about what activities are allowable. Core standards is not an allowable activity. That is something that you should be doing anyway. These would be, remember when we're talking well-rounded or safe and healthy, either one of those, we're really looking at the equity piece on that. So saying that you're going to teach your core standards, that should be your minimum. That shouldn't be something that is increasing your equitable access to education for your students. That should be your minimum. So what things can you do that increase student outcomes? So they could be college and career guidance, programs that support arts, activities for student engagement in STEM, accelerated learning, teaching social studies, foreign languages, environmental education, anything that integrates multiple contents together. So combining literacy and health, mathematics and art. Any subject that is determined by the state or local education agency with the purpose of providing all students access to an enriched curriculum and educational experience. And this last one, we are creating strategy guides, and I'll share a couple little screen grabs of 2 that are done. Those would be the things that would be determined by the state that we would like you to, or not like, that's not the right word, but that would be allowable, that we've deemed allowable. If you've received the grant in the last 2 years, can we continue to provide the same services? Yes, as long as those services are still allowable, and they should be, and as long as yes, I'll just start. Yes, as long as you weren't approved for something that would no longer be aligned, and I don't know that anyone is doing that currently. So as long as it's an evidence-based strategy, yes, you can continue this year. You will need to do a new needs assessment though next year, so in 2020, assuming that you did yours in 18 for the first time, because it's every 3 years. And at that point of the new needs assessment, it would have to be new because you have to do it based off the comprehensive needs assessment outcomes. And so continuing, you would have to justify how your needs assessment matched that you're continuing something. So with safe and healthy, this one hasn't changed a lot. If you receive less, correct, if you receive less than 30,000, there is not a needs assessment. With safe and healthy students, the allowable activities that we had before on our application these are pretty in line with what was already there, but there's a lot more that you can do than we advertised to you and gave you ideas for in the past. So substance abuse prevention, suicide prevention, sex abuse prevention, violence prevention, that was all there before. That's not new. Mental health services, which I know a lot of you have been using for funds to do mental health services, and that's great. You can continue doing that. Anything that integrates health and safety practices into your school and athletic programs. I don't know that one was particularly advertised to you. Supporting healthy, active lifestyles, including nutrition education, regular structural physical activity programs. So both of those, I don't know, were well advertised, but you can absolutely use those. Evidence-based bullying, harassment prevention, those were on our applications before. Mentoring and school counseling to students, especially those at risk for academic failure. High quality training for suicide prevention, trauma-informed practices, crisis management, conflict resolution. Sorry about that, I not being able to speak. Human trafficking, violence prevention, substance abuse prevention, bullying, harassment prevention. I know that's a little redundant, but it's the high quality training is what's different about that. And then any kind of positive behavior intervention supports. All of those would be allowable to use with that 20% for all of you that are over 30,000. And then if you're under 30,000, you could choose any of those as one of your activities. Then with technology. This one could be really useful to us right now with everything that we're doing and having to be virtual for so much, because it could be any kind of professional learning for your staff, for your teachers and administrators, counselors, anyone working in your building. If they need more professional learning on how to use technology effectively, you could use 4A funds for that, for those training purposes. You can help with capacity. You can absolutely help with building rigorous academic courses that are online, blended learning projects, and providing students in rural, remote, or underserved areas resources for learning experiences and access to online courses. So all of those are allowable. I'm going to pause in just a minute. So here are two of those strategy guides. So if you remember, I said that anything that was deemed by the state allowable, these are two guides that have been put together for mathematics and ELA, English Language Arts, in well-rounded. So you can see that, and these will be shared with you as well. These are going to end up on our website. And we're going to put them all together, and we'll have a whole packet of these that you can view. We'll also get them to everyone. We'll share out a link here at the end of this. I will go on and share a link to a drive that will give you access to all of this in just a moment. So as I can pause. But you can see math has been very thoughtful, and this is actually 2 pages long. You just have a screen grab of the first page. They were very thoughtful in thinking of things that would work. So they're talking about detracking. So stop keeping track of students and teachers that aren't performing at their expected level. It's not proven to be beneficial, so implement a detracking of students. Integrating math and other content areas. Again, that one was on our list before about integrating. Providing coaches, professional learning and support, and implementation of multi-tiered systems of support. With English Language Arts, they also have multi-tiered system of support. They have database decision-making, dyad reading, disciplinary literacy. So these are just some of their ideas under well-rounded. They did also fill this out for how to use mathematics and ELA for safe and healthy and effective use of technology. So these guides will go through all 3 allowable activity areas and how you can use it in different contents. I believe that social studies is redoing a guide as well. Arts has started. And science and STEM, I believe, are also going to get guides up that we can share out with all of you. Hold on, there's one more. So these are other this is just a really simple chart to share just some different pots that you are, so each well-rounded, safe and healthy, and just very simple language of things that you could use the money for. So that is the end of this section. Are there any questions about allowable activities? And you can either unmute your mic and speak, or you can type into the chat box. Carol, do you have a question? You just unmuted. Were you?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. On my end, I could hear the tap in, and then your picture popped up that you had unmuted. So, okay, no questions?
I do have one.
Yeah.
And maybe you already answered this because I was a minute or two late getting in, but what is the little asterisk at the bottom of the effective use of technology? What is that 15% special rule?
Okay, so that 15% of your funds can be used within effective use of technology. So of whatever percent of money you are using in your LEA for effective use of technology, say you're using 10%, you can only use a max of 15% of that 10% for infrastructure.
Okay, yeah, I remember that now.
Okay, yeah. Great question, though. Always good to review. Okay. Here's our biggest change, our comprehensive needs assessment. And for most of you, this is not something you need to do with your 21 application because you only have to do it every 3 years. And if you're receiving under $30,000, you don't have to do it at all. But for everyone receiving over $30,000, when you do this application next time, you will have to do your comprehensive needs assessment differently. The way that we had asked you to do it before was not, it really wasn't correct. It was not making you do the right thing. And the reason you only have to do it every 3 years is it's pretty cumbersome. It is not an easy task to do it correctly. The idea is that you are doing the assessment before you have an idea in mind, and you're using that needs assessment to drive what your goal needs to be. The way that we've been doing these is you know what you want, and so then you make your needs assessment match what you want, and that's kind of backwards. You need to do the needs assessment first to determine what you actually need to do, and then set your goals. So there are tools for this that, again, they are lengthy, and I'm not going to lie to you. It will take time to do this correctly. But the whole purpose, again, is to identify the areas of improvement that your LEA needs related to well-rounded, safe and healthy, and effective use of technology. It will take you through all 3 of those so that you can really determine what your actual needs are and how they relate to Title IV Part A. So there is a downloadable assessment tool. You can download it now. It's on the applications that were sent out. Within the instructions, it tells you that you can download and use this. But you don't need to, so then what it does then is it makes sure that you know what your needs and root causes are, your system inequities, and it helps you prioritize when there are many things that your LEA may need. It helps you prioritize, and that's why it's important that you do it correctly. But when you're done, I don't want the whole needs assessment back. It is lengthy. If done correctly, it is lengthy. And I don't want all of it back. I don't need it back. I don't need to know every little thing that you did. But you would have to report back, and this is on the application. You do need to report back your findings of data, what stakeholders you involved, and what is your action plan for each of the areas. Because again, you only do the needs assessment if you're getting over 30,000, and when you're getting over 30,000, you need to do all 3. So what is your action plan for using well-rounded? What is your action plan for safe and healthy students? And then effective use of technology. Again, we do not need the full needs assessment. One other thing that we need from you, and this one you cannot get, you cannot get your reimbursement without giving us this information, because this is part of our audit and our report, what we need to report back to the feds. We need to know how much money was spent in each pot. And this is for everyone. This isn't just if you're over 30,000. If you are getting $10,000, you still need to tell us how much you spent in each area. thank you, Crystal, for putting the assessment link in again. And I do see the question. I'll get to it in just a second from Provo. So then you'll just give us a summary, and this really shouldn't take you very long. When you are after you've submitted your reimbursements, this really should only take you a couple minutes for you to keep track of how you're spending your money and in which allowable activity you're spending that money, and just a really quick summary of how did you spend it. Okay, so the question was, did I understand you correctly when you said this would need to be done next year, not necessarily this year? Because yes, correct. That is absolutely correct. That needs assessment is not, unless you are 100% changing what you've been doing, you don't need to do your needs assessment this year. If you're continuing on with what you identified your main needs with, and you're still choosing the activities that met your initial needs assessment in 2018, this 2021 is your final year on this needs assessment, because you only have to do a needs assessment every 3 years. But next year, for the FY22, everyone should have to do a needs assessment at that point, because that should be the end of that first round. Okay, I'm going to pause for a minute. Any question about the needs assessment and what you need to report to us exactly? Okay. Supplement, not supplant. I think we've been doing really well with this. When I've been doing, just since, in the last, I guess, 4 months now, as I'm doing reimbursements, and I did help review applications for the 2020, and I think actually 2019 as well, to do with Safe and Healthy. Because my role before this was the health and PE specialist. And I do our model wellness policy at the State Board of Education. So everything that had to do before with Safe and Healthy Schools, I was part of that review team and helped determine if the strategies were evidence-based, and in order to approve those. So what I've seen and noticed, I don't see a whole lot of, Crystal, will you take the question in the chat, please? I don't see a whole lot of wanting to supplant our funds. So what that means is, if you're already getting funding from, let's say, our DTNL team, Digital Teaching and Learning, and you already are receiving funds for your technology with them, you can't stop using their money and start using 4A instead. That would be supplanting it. However, you can say, hey, I get 10,000 from them. I really need 15,000 to get to where our goal is. I'm going to use 5,000 from Title 4A. You can do that, because now you're supplementing the funds that you're already receiving. Or maybe you're getting money from Beverly Taylor Sorensen. You're getting some BTS money for your arts program, but maybe it's not quite enough to do the goals that your LEA has. You could use 4A money to supplement that program to really make it more equitable for your students. And again, you get to tell me why in your application. You get to explain. You get to tell us why this is your goal, why you have a need for this in your LEA. Okay. So there are just a couple sections when you fill out the application. You have to give us your proposal and abstract again. So this is where you get to tell us why is this what you're doing. Your narrative, which has your needs assessment and goals. Needs assessment probably doesn't need to be done this year unless you're changing everything, or if you've never done it. If you've never, and actually I don't know that anyone who's never used the funds is over 30,000. So unless you are changing your grant significantly, you don't need to do a needs assessment. And I'm just going to make that statement full out, because I do not believe that anyone over 30 has never applied before. But you still need to tell me your goals. Even if you're using the exact same goal, if you're continuing what you've done, and so you're using the data from your last needs assessment, you still need to explain your goals and how they're continuing, because hopefully you achieved something last year with the funding. So how are we expanding on that and continuing our goals for the 21 fiscal year? And what are our evidence-based interventions? Explain those again. Maybe the last ones aren't great, so maybe you're moving to something different. Explain that. Or maybe they're working really well and the data proves it and you want to continue those. Just tell us that. We still need your budget and budget justification, but that is all done within Utah grants. I don't need you to also put it on the application that you submit. So I took that section out of the application itself, and somebody needs to be muted. So I took that part out of the application because you put it in Utah grants. You don't need to do it twice. That just seemed like extra work that nobody needs to do. I wasn't lying when I told you I really tried to simplify. If you have any references that would better explain why you did things, go ahead and include those. You need to do your confidentiality claim form. And if you are doing any partnerships with other LEAs, so if you are a very small LEA and you want to partner with a neighboring LEA that is also small and has the same goals and needs that you have identified, you can partner with them and you can join your money. But there's a form for that. So if you're going to do that, there is a form that you need to fill out that's part of the application as well. That LEA A and LEA B have decided that they have the same goal, but because of limited resources or limited funds, maybe you each only get $10,000. Or you're very rural and there's not a lot of people that do what it is that you want done. Maybe it's training teachers. Here's a great example. You have a need to train teachers in a certain digital platform, but you only have a small amount of teachers. And in order to get this vendor to train all your teachers, it costs so much money. But the neighboring LEA has the exact same goal. They really want this platform too. In order to do that, you could join and have this vendor train all of your teachers and do professional learning for both LEAs. And then you can put your money together to do that. And I don't know that very many of you have been doing that. It is allowable though. Okay, that concludes my presentation on what's changing. The application, Crystal, is it live? The question is, when will the application open? I believe it's open.
So it's in the process of going through our finance department, so it hasn't quite opened yet, but very soon. And we'll send out communication once it does. Thank you.
I didn't know that it hadn't gone completely live yet. I thought we were there.
So close.
Yeah, it's in the steps of the whole world. We do have a due date of October 30th for the application, but if it gets delayed, we can always push that back and allow more time. If any of you feel like you need lots more time, reach out to us and we can, it's not hard to extend a due date. Crystal, can you capture the email to add in the chat? Heather Campbell from Wasatch Waldorf wants to be added. You are very welcome. Happy to add anyone. And if you do, so Crystal's email is up on the screen right now, and so is mine. If you have other people in your LEAs that you would like added, then you can absolutely email either of us and we can get you added so that you are getting communication from us as we go. Technology infrastructure, student devices, yeah, that would be part of it, unless you can, let me go back. So technology is kind of a funny one. So yes, that is infrastructure, except for, oops, one more. If it is building the capacity and you can, especially right now, link it to the needs with COVID-19 and why you need to have more devices, it could actually be allowable right now. But a lab inside of your school would be infrastructure, and that would be capped at the 15%. But if it was to have devices that the students can use at home, that could be capacity. Yeah, COVID-19 is actually as horrible as it is, and that it looks like most of you are doing this meeting also from homes. As you get, this is my home behind me. It has really opened up this grant with allowing a few things that in the past it's been a little more strict about. Will the Excel template you showed for reimbursement be required this year? Yeah, it is required. It's required now. So any, which is this one here. Crystal, you've already sent this out, correct? Because we're already getting responses for the 20 funds, yeah?
Yeah, and this is on our website. Let me provide a link to that as well.
Yeah, we have to report in January how for the whole state. So we have been collecting this already. And it seems to be working really well with everyone that's been submitting their reimbursements. This, it seems that no one's having lots of trouble with reporting the amounts that they've been using, and it seems to be working really, really well. Thank you, Crystal, for providing that link.
Reimbursement or not until we do a needs assessment.
This is also the same main webpage that we will have the strategies for, the strategies for the different contents will also be on this exact same website, on a different tab, but on this website.
Can I ask a question? This is Charity
Yes.
Provo.
Yeah.
So can you help me with the dates? Are the money we just applied for in January still goes until the end of this school year, right?
Not school, well, no, not school year.
Okay.
So 19 funds were supposed to end the September 30th of this year, but because of COVID and CARES Act, they're actually extended.
Okay.
And next year with FY20's funds, which is September 30th. So the grants run from July 1st and then all the way to September 30th of the next year.
Okay. So they didn't.
So you have 20
January.
You have 27 months to use the. Is that right? 27. 27, right? Yeah. Okay. I see a nod. Thanks, Crystal. You have 27 months to use the funding.
And do we need to spend the one down first before we start spending the new?
Yes. And if you spend your money, but you have like $40 left, it sounds ridiculous. But if you had $40 and we have an LEA in this exact situation, so that was the number that came to my brain because we have this. You can't use your next year's funding until that $20 or that $40 is either spent or waived.
Okay, so a question, in the last couple of years, we've written this grant to provide for extended day kindergarten, using with all the formulas and all the good things.
Mhm.
If we wrote this new piece to cover something new as defined by a needs assessment, we couldn't start spending it on the new piece until all the money for the kindergarten program is spent down, which I think we're calculated to spend that down by the end of, just by the end of this school year. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so whatever we write for in this new application for, it's okay if it doesn't start taking place or being acted upon until next September.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it when I can answer the questions. Crystal and I are really prepared to like write down questions and not be able to answer them and like come back and answer them to you in an email later. Is there a rolling open window for applying? Typically no. So in the past, we got applications out late the first year. And so we've kind of been late every year. We are a little more on time with this one. It was supposed to open in July when we got the new funding for our state. So we're a lot closer to on time this year than we have last. The first one, I think we were like 6 months late actually. So we're getting a lot better to being on time. So I understand. So if you were just approved in June for your 20, I'm assuming, because we opened up, we had about 30 or so LEAs that hadn't used their 20 funds yet. And we gave you a kind of a second opportunity to try to use those. And so we opened it up just to the people who hadn't done it yet, because we really want you to be able to use this money and it not go to waste essentially and just sit there and not be used. We want you to use it. We have it, let's use it. So if you just applied, it's because you hadn't applied and we gave you a second chance. I would like to not have to continue doing that. So if you want to apply for your 21 money now and then just use it when you're done with your 20, because again, you have 2 years. And I'm sorry, that is my boxer puppy who decided to make really weird noises while I'm speaking. That was so nice of him. I don't sound like Chewbacca. That is a 60-pound puppy. And we're recording this, so other people who aren't here today get to hear all of my awesome commentary. At the beginning of the meeting, you could go back and hear my 4-month-old, who was only 2 months old at the time, giggle because I was sharing that with Amanda from Grand School District. And I had my phone up to the camera and she was watching him giggle. So, you know. Nathan, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that was really helpful. So I'm assuming, so that money will be available to us for 27 months.
Yes.
And then?
Yeah, until September 2022. So 21 money is until 2023?
So 20 funds will expire in 21, and then 21 funds will expire in 22.
Okay, well, that's only
If we,
27. That's only 13 months.
but you're saying if I apply again this fall,
Yeah.
by the end of October, we could qualify for even more money, but we would need to use the previous money first.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you'll have to use the money that you just applied for, which was FY20 money. Federal years are really strange to me. They don't follow our fiscal years. So then I almost like a sliding calendar that like helps me like color code things or something.
So I think where it might be confusing is, though we're calling it 21, the project period for 21 funds starts July 1st, 2020 and ends September 2022.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. Because it's 20, yep. Thanks, Crystal.
Yeah, of course.
I said, I need color coding. I can't keep track of this in my brain.
But if I don't apply by the end of October for the FY21 money, then I'm guessing I can't assume that you'll extend that like you did on the previous one. Like, you know, because I will use up this FY20 money this year,
Mm-hmm.
but then I don't want to lose out on, you know, the currently available funds. So I guess I'm just wondering, do I need to?
You are definitely safer to apply now because I can't promise that we are going to open it back up. And
Okay.
yeah, we've been doing it in the past, but I can't guarantee that we'll do it again.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
And I also can't promise, I can't say that we won't, because I mean, we could, but I would really like to get it down to one application cycle. It's much easier. It's a much easier lift for us and the other staff that I ask to review applications if we can do it once. Any other questions? Okay, well, there's certainly no reason to continue a meeting if there is no other questions. Let me put my contact back up on the screen just in case anyone needs it. Mine and Crystal's contact is here. You are always welcome to email us. You can also call. Email is better right now because we are not at our actual offices. We are home. We will be possibly going back to our offices in 2 more weeks, but even then we're not there every day. Email is better. Our desk phones are routed through our laptops, and that can be really bad audio. So email really is the better way to reach us and get an answer quickly. The time frame of when it'll be, it could be any day. I wish I could tell you that by the end of the week, the grant will be open and live on Utah Grants. It just, we're not in control of that, so we can't have an absolute date. We're hoping, as Crystal just put, it'll be like within the next week to at the latest. But again, everything's ready. It's all there. We're just waiting for everyone in finance to look over and make sure that everything is perfect before it goes live, because we don't want to have it go live and have that we made a, you know, a silly error and then we have to recall everything, because that's much harder. Okay, well, you are all free to leave. I hope that there was information that was valuable to you today. And it, we didn't take your whole 2 hours, so that is always nice when a meeting ends earlier, right? We did want to give you 2 hours in case there were lots of questions. Again, feel free to reach out if you need anything. And well, Tiffany's in here. Tiffany, we should have used your applications in the past. You could like do our example or be our exemplar always. I enjoy reading your applications. They're always so great. Yeah, and I think we can probably capture who's in here. So we can even email you a link. And I had told you I was going to do that. Let me stop sharing. Now that half the people have left, I will get a link out. Oh my heck, the pressure's on. Let's see.
So if we're standing in for somebody and this is actually getting kind of dropped down into my area.
Mhm.
Do I need to add my email or because I'm just anticipating I'm not going to get your slides or your emails if I'm not involved with that, I guess.
Right. 1 second. Let me. Hold on. I am. If you guys want to wait, like, sorry, I apologize for this, but if you want to wait for just a moment, I will get it dropped into. I will get it dropped in here in just. And then I will just keep adding as we get those strategy guides. I will add them into this folder as well. Okay, let me. Oh, only people with the link can share. Okay, this should work. Okay, just created a folder that I will continue dropping documents into. And I apologize that I didn't have that sooner. It was on my to-do list and I totally dropped it. So far the slides, I'll also put this recording on here, but that will end up on our website as well. And then all the strategy guides, I'll get those in here. Soon as I end this meeting, I'll put the strategy guides in here. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to end the meeting, everybody. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Okay, thank you, Trevor. I will change that. I'll fix the access right now. I was worried about that. I'll fix that. Okay. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Crystal.